The world is full of odd, delightful, and mysterious objects, but some of them are harder to come by than others. Thankfully, there are people who have dedicated their lives to collecting, well, just about everything.
In my work, I really try to reproduce smell scenarios for different purposes, be it a street, be it a neighborhood in a city. I've done thousands of smell all over the world. Could we, on behalf of a smell molecule, find out something about history that we otherwise wouldn't know?
This is Sisi Tallis. She is many things. An artist, a scientist, but more importantly, a smell expert. She, however, prefers another title.
I call myself a professional in-betweener.
Which means what exactly?
There's a whole world to smell and a whole world to educate how to smell, so you cannot just limit yourself to one discipline.
Right. The point is, she has dedicated her life to the sense of smell, what it means and how it can be used to better understand the world and each other.
Pretty early in my life, I started to ask questions. Why are we only understanding the world on behalf of how the world looks like? What if we start to use the other senses more appropriate for the same purpose? Off I went, starting to discover the same world I've been looking at for several years, using the nose for the purpose.
So how exactly did she go about recording and then reproducing these smells?
I will walk around, identify smells with my own nose. I have small devices that enable me to collect the smell molecules emitting from the source. With the result, I go to my lab, and then the data I get back is then the starting point of reproduction of the actual smell. I have a lab consisting of up to 4,000 chemical compounds. And with those ingredients, with those compounds, I literally reproduce invisible reality that surround you full time, all the time.
Name a city, a neighborhood within a neighborhood, a historical building, or even an era in time, and most likely Sisi has reproduced that smell along with thousands of other scents here in her lab, with the hopes of using the findings for a bigger purpose.
The purpose can be tolerance, education, navigation, to memorize. The list is endless. It's more interesting if you really start to understand the smells and see how you can use that information for a purpose beyond the smell itself.
It can be beetles that come off a cactus. It can be the dried urine of a cow, little insects that grow on an oak tree, a chunk of lead that's soaked in vinegar. It's truly amazing. We're in Harvard University outside the Forbes pigment collection. Pigment is a very small particle of coloured material that is mixed in with a binding medium. The pigment gives paint its colour. The Forbes pigment collection has been brought together over several decades. We have around 2,500 pigments. We have a lot of very unusual and very rare colours. So this is, I think, one of the more unusually named pigments. It's called dragon's blood. It doesn't come from dragons, it comes from rattan palms, and it gives a very bright red pigment. The unusual aspect of mummy has to do with its source rather than the colour itself. And that comes from Egyptian mummies. And it's the resin that's applied to the outside of the bandages. I think the rarest colour that we have is actually an entire ball of Indian yellow. And this is a pigment that is made from the dried urine of cows that are fed only on mango leaves. If you're looking at a work of art and you want to understand what is original and what's a restoration, you will take a tiny sample of pigment and analyse it. A lot of the pigments are actually toxic, so you don't want to handle the pigments and then go out to lunch. There's a green called emerald green that has an arsenic centre to it. We can use them for telling if something is real or not. People will say this is by a certain artist, and we can look at the materials that are used and decide if those materials were available during that artist's lifetime. If not, then we have to look at who might have painted that picture. I can't pick a personal favourite. It's like asking to pick a favourite child. No, the other 2,400 would feel left out.
We have sound speed.
Sound rolling.
Ready, Kirk?
Okay.
Roll picture.
The Smithsonian's National Museum of Natural History has over 144 million objects, like this narwhal tusk. My name's Kirk Johnson. I'm in charge of all of them. 99% of the collections are behind the scenes, and these are the people that work with them. This is Carla Dove from the Division of Birds.
Here in the Division of Birds, we have somewhere around 620,000 museum specimens, and that represents about 85% of the diversity of birds in the world. You look at these specimens and you realize that this is where the science is really going to start. We're using our collections to identify birds that collide with airplanes and help us improve aviation safety.
Dr. Bob Robbins, curator of butterflies and moths.
I have been professionally employed as a lepidopterist who works on butterflies for about 35 years. This is the essence of my being, is to know everything about butterflies. There's a whole world out there that, unless you look very closely, you don't see. And it's an interesting world, it's a fascinating world, and it is full of practical value for human beings.
This is Ellen Strong, curator of mollusks.
What I love about this collection is its breadth. We estimate that we may have as many as 20 million specimens. We are preserving a record of past life on this planet, of present life on this planet, and preserving that for the future. I take that responsibility very seriously in providing access and caring for the specimens for posterity.
Dr. Jeff Post, curator of the National Gem and Mineral Collection.
Minerals in this collection go from something that formed maybe in the last few tens of years to others that formed more than 3 billion years ago. We know right now there are more than 5,000 minerals that make up the Earth. And in our collection, we probably have more than half of those. Each one's a little piece of the puzzle. And we try to put all these things together and hopefully eventually understand the big picture of how the Earth works.
And Floyd Shockley, collection manager for entomology.
We have just a little over 35 million specimens in the collection. A third of all insect life on Earth is represented by at least one specimen in our collection. When you look at a collection the size of ours, you're starting to get to a point where you can ask really big questions. The questions related to global climate change, habitat destruction, and you can only answer those big questions if you have a lot of specimens collected over a long period of time from a lot of different species.
To understand the Earth and the living things on the Earth, you need to collect those things and preserve them and study them. And that helps you when you need food or when you have a disease. All that stuff arcs back to the fact that we have samples of the whole planet here, and that's how we understand the planet.
The Harvard Brain Bank is one of the largest brain banks in the country. At the moment we house approximately 5,000 brain specimens. My name is Sabina Berretta. I am the scientific director of the Harvard Brain Tissue Resource Center, which we affectionately call Harvard Brain Bank. Our mission is to collect brain specimens, store them, characterize them, and then redistribute them out to investigators across the world. They do research on the human brain, and in particular on large number of neurological and psychiatric brain disorders, such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, Parkinson, Huntington, and many others. The Brain Bank never sleeps. We have 2 sets of people that are on call 24/7. We have a very limited time window from when the person passes away to the time we need to be done with this whole processing.
So this is gonna be your first brain late at night, right?
I know, first late night brain. We have to do it in less than 24 hours. Our courier will bring it to McLean Hospital, to the Brain Bank.
So just put it out here, so we're gonna take ourselves.
There will be a dissectionist ready to dissect the brain. That involves separating the two hemispheres. One of the two hemispheres is put in a solution that preserves it. The other hemisphere will be dissected in thick sections, and those will be frozen. We are not even close to understand a lot of what we take for granted. Our thoughts, our instincts, our feelings, our emotions. There are a lot of questions we still don't know, and a lot of our brain functions still will probably be studied for a long time to come. A brain donation is, in a very concrete way, a gift of knowledge, and it cannot be done without the help of families and people willing to donate their brain.
In Spring Green, Wisconsin, there is a house on a rock. But it is so much more than that. Inside, it is home to many bizarre and incredible collections. There's a room of self-playing instruments, an infinity room, a giant squid attacking a whale, and some nightmare-inducing dolls. It seems like a really strange museum, and that's because...
No. It appears to be a museum because it is housing antiques, it's housing all kinds of memorabilia and things from a different era. It's more of a place to just enjoy.
So, what is House on the Rock?
The House on the Rock to me is a magical complex. It's an all-around sensory explosion.
It was made by Alex Jordan, who was an architect?
Not at all, not at all. He is not a trained man. He's just a man of great vision.
Maybe not an architect, but an evident hoarder. Alex Jordan, with the help of his friends, built the House on the Rock in the 40s and opened it to the public in the 60s. His collections of antiques and junk, new items and old, real and quite obviously fake, have no central theme or apparent reason for being there. And maybe that's part of its charm. There are some pretty incredible things, including a huge, unrideable carousel.
269 different animals, not one of them is a horse.
Really?
Yes, the horses adorn the walls.
Of course they do.
You know, every time you turn the corner here, it's a different thing and it's a different wow, and you don't know what to expect.
One man's trash is another man's roadside tourist attraction.